up, guys? It's Micah with 90 Day Guitar. Thought I would drop a little video on intervals, major and minor third intervals to be exact. And if you're not really sure what intervals are just the distance between two notes. So if you play two notes either at the same time or one at a time, just say that's an interval. If you do, that's a different interval. If you do, that's a different interval. So any two notes that you do is an interval. What they do is create different ideas, different sounds with whatever you decide to play. A nice thing about intervals, they can be pretty easy to use once you get used to them and understand how to use them. When you learn to use your fretboard, when you learn where your chords and things are around your guitar neck, spotting an interval becomes an easy thing, and it's an easy tool that you can have to quickly grab and use when you're improvising or playing a lead. So let's take a look at what that looks like. What you just heard me do was I created a loop of a G, a C, and a D. So that means that I'm playing in the key of G. And if I'm playing in the key of G, that means I can use any note from the any two notes from the G scale along with that, and it's going to work. It's going to sound pretty good. So let's take a look at the screen here. Now, we have G, C, and D, and look at this bottom little triad here, and we see this shape here, and it looks like a D chord shape, but it's way up here. So your root note G is on the 8th fret of the B string. Okay. Now look at this note here, the 3. This is a triangle and a 3 that stands for major third. If I were going to take that and drop it back one, you see it says flat third. So that would be our minor third. Okay, so the idea is this: to play third intervals, if you want to just get used to playing third intervals in the key of G, let's get rid of this 5, okay? And we're just talking about thirds, so we can play either a G in a flat third, or we can play a G in a major third. Well, this is going to give you your G major chord, and since we're in the key of G, your one chord is a G major chord. So we're going to leave that as that is, okay? So you can play that G in that major third just like that right here. Okay? Now we'll look at this fretboard again to look at the other notes in the key of G and see which ones are major and which ones are minor intervals and how to find them. So if we look at this fretboard up here, we see the G in the third right here, okay? The G with the major third interval is red. And you can see there's another one way up here past the 12th fret. On the 20th fret, we have another G. You can see the red. So I've color-coded them to work. And you look, from here, one whole step above G, we have an A. Well, in our G scale, that's what we have. We have an A, we have a B, we have a C, a D, E, F sharp, back to G. That's in our G scale. So if you looked at that now, each of these has its own interval, and some of them will have a major interval like the G, the first chord, and then the A and the B both have minor third intervals. As you can see, that third is 1/2 step further back than it would be if it was a major as it is on the G. For a G, you have a major. For the A after the G, you have a minor. For the B after the G, you have a minor. You also, right behind the G, you have an F sharp. It's also a minor. And then the E is also a minor. So both chords on both sides of G are a minor interval. So you would play, if you wanted to play the third interval with that root note of that chord, it would be a minor third. You would need to flatten that third. What does that look like on our guitar? Here's our G. If I'm going to take it up to the A, minor third right here. To the B, minor third. If I want to take it backwards, F sharp, minor, and also an E minor, okay? And think about this, in the key of G, we have a G, we have an A minor, we have a B minor, we have a F sharp diminished, and we have a E minor also. We haven't talked about the C and the D yet, but those two are major chords. So C and the D would be up here. Think about this, G, A, B, C, and D. And as you can see, these both have major intervals. And if you look up here on our sheet, we have a C and a D, and these are major third intervals. So if we're playing something in the key of G and you wanted to do something say a little bit different than running a scale or something like that, you could decide to, hey, I'm going to walk up around the G scale using major and minor third intervals according to the chord. Very simply, it's not hard to do this. You could just get used to doing it, and what I like to do is, first off, get used to using one new interval with your root chord. So in other words, G with that major third, and then the A with the minor third. When you get used to that, you go to G to the B minor. G, A minor, B minor. What can we do with that? We'll turn the loop back on. Okay, so that's just 3 intervals that we're using right there, and you can see how once you get used to it, it's kind of easy. You don't have to move all around and do all the intervals. You can just pick 1 or 2 or 3 and get used to the ones right there around your root chord, because that's the easiest thing to see. And then you could take it, you could also go backwards. But just get used to small bits at a time. Here we go forward. Add in a couple more, the C and the D. So as you can see, it's kind of a cool concept. It's not that hard to do, and it gives you that beachy kind of Hawaii, whatever makes you think about it. It makes me think of the beach. I think it sounds a lot like that because that's kind of how the steel drum is played, which we hear in a lot of beach music. You know, they work those. They're playing those two. They're playing 2 different notes at the same time with their 2 little drumsticks on their steel drum. To play those notes, so they're creating intervals in the same thing. I just thought about that as we're talking here. Anyways, that's the idea. I hope you can take that and use that with your guitar playing. You can switch it to any key and whatnot. And just real quick, guys, if this is new stuff to you and you find it helpful, and you feel like, hey, this is pretty cool, but I don't know how to use my fretboard very well, and this kind of stuff is going to take me a little while, I want to tell you about my course called Triads and Pentatonic Pieces, and it's the quickest way to learning to use your entire guitar fretboard. I will take you through using 3 shapes through the entire fretboard and teach you how to navigate quickly. One of the biggest problems that I think people have when they're learning guitar is they're trying to do all these scale patterns and whatnot, and really that's a terrible way to navigate around your fretboard through scale patterns. The best way to do it is through chords and then adding in a couple little pieces of scales around those chords to give you good chord tone following type of leads. Believe it or not, all lead actually does this, but most people do not break it down this way. They tell you what's going on in the scale. They don't tell you as much of how they're navigating their fretboard using these chord shapes. I'm not really sure why people don't teach it this way, but I don't see hardly anyone teaching this way. Anyways, that's all I'm going to say about it. So if you are interested in learning to use your entire guitar fretboard, I'm going to give you a link on this video to check out the free training to Triads and Pentatonic Pieces, and then you can decide if that you think this is something that's going to help you in your guitar playing. Anyway, hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you soon.